If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button to keep up to date with all my latest videos.
Well, hey guys, welcome to Life with Gaz, and today I've decided to come out and do a bit of freshwater fishing. I've had a few comments on my channel, people saying they'd like to see me have a go at a bit, so I've come down with my brother Charlie down here, down to Clevdon, just outside of Bristol, to a lake called Plantations. Now this fishery's got a few different lakes. We're going to fish the match lake. There's a good head of carp in here, and that's what we're after. So fingers crossed, we are going to see some of them today.
So the first thing on the agenda today is to make sure that the drags are set right on the reels. Now these reels are bait runners, and we're going to be letting the fish take the bait through the lead and run off across the lake. So I want that drag to essentially just be stiff enough to hold that weight and let it drop slowly, rather than let it just run as fast as it can down to the floor, because if it's too loose, chances are you'll end up with a tangle on your reel. But once I was happy with this, then what I'll do is I'll bait up and then throw the baits out there. And as we're carp fishing today, we're going to be using some boilers. Now the boilers which I'm using are the coconut ones, and these are very simple. Just shove a bait needle through them, give it a little twist to bore it out without cracking the thing, and then pull it back through with the hair itself, put a stopper on it, and then you're pretty much good to go. And then the final check is just make sure that that weight's running up and down the line, because it's on a hollowed out bead which has a swivel on it to allow that bait to move without the fish feeling the weight itself. Now when me and Charlie got here this morning, we decided to fish down at this bottom end of the lake because the wind was blowing in towards us, and we've seen quite a few fish moving down this end as well, and we thought it was a fairly good place to start. So we're fishing really tight in onto the banks, only about 2 rod lengths out, and we pretty much stayed doing that most of the day. And as you can see here, it didn't take me long to get into my first fish. Now, I've never really done much carp fishing before, so this is the first carp that I'd ever caught. And there he goes, back of the net and ready to be picked up, unhooked, and get a quick photo of him as well. This fish himself though, he weighed in at 7 pounds, so for me that's a good start to the morning. And after a quick photo, he was safely returned back to the water, where he gave us a wave goodbye with his tail. Now drying my hands off after catching that fish, it didn't take long for me to get my second bite, and I had to leg it over to my rods to make contact with that fish too. Now one of the things you may notice is that the net we're using is slightly larger than we really need, and that's because my brother took a little trip out to Angler's Paradise and fished their Specimen Lake for a bit, and he done well out there, so that's why the big net was left in the car. Now I had to leave this fish on the line a little bit longer than what I wanted to, and that's because we just unhooked the other fish and the net wasn't actually on the net pole itself, because we used that to release the fish. But what happened was the fish staying in on the line actually managed to throw the hook loose just as I put the net in the water, but luckily I managed to just poach that fish with the top of the net and get him in there in one movement. And you might see some boilers on the floor there. They were literally going to be thrown in just to bait that area up before the two rods went. Now this net ain't my net, so as you can see I'm struggling to get the poles out of here. There was a bit of a technique, you had to straighten the pole and then pull it out, and it came out fine, but I needed my brother to come over and show me how to do it. So with my second fish on the bank, this little guy was £5 and this little guy was just unhooked, a quick photo and released just like the other one. And this guy, as you can see from there, was a nice healthy lean fish, and most of the fish in this pond are actually like that. There's not any with really great big fat boily bellies on them. These guys are healthy, nice run fish. Now throughout the day I did have a few runs that I missed, like you see here. I'm just sorting one rod out and the other one goes and I managed to miss that. But I will tell you a little bit about this place. Now Plantations have got 3 lakes and we decided to fish the match lake. They do have a specimen lake with carp which are well into their 20s, but we decided that being February, being quite cold, and the fact that down in Bristol has been quite cold for the last couple of weeks and only just warmed up, would stand a better chance out on here, so that's why we stayed here. But in this lake there are quite a lot of fish, and I was told about perch of £4 12 ounces, and if I had loads of time down here, instead of going for the carp, I'd also spend a few days trying to chase that big thing around in this pond as well. That'd be a cracking perch to see. But there's a good head of silverfish. These guys had a match on the week before, and the winner on the silverfish was £26. So obviously we did see people fishing for those guys, and they were just coming out thick and fast. Lots of roach, I think, and lots of little bream looking at what was there. But it's a great little fishery, and if this is what it's doing in the winter, right in the middle of February where we are now, then chances are at some point, if I get down to Bristol in the warmer months, I'm going to want to come back down here and see what I can do in the summer. Now throughout this session I did pick up a few bites which were very short and very fast. They only took between about 6 to 12 inches a line each time, and I'm not sure whether this is fish picking up the bait and running with it, spitting it out whilst they feel the weight of the line or the weight on the bottom, or whether it's just fish swimming past which have just managed to glance into the line itself, and obviously being on a bait runner have stripped a tiny little bit of line as they've moved past it. Now on the other hand, this next bite I couldn't put down to being a line bite or a fish that had not really held on to the bait, spat it out, because I felt the weight of this fish straight away. Unfortunately, the fish stayed on for about 5 seconds before it managed to throw the hook. Now after a couple of missed bites, then I got a bite which was very different on the other rod. Instead of it being short and sharp, it was a slow, confident and sustained pull, and it kept pulling line off. So I picked it up and struck into this fish, and instantly I could feel that this fish was a bit heavier than the two I previously had. Now when bringing this one in, our char come over with the net, so I let him do the honours and net the fish for me, and I was happy with this fish because it was definitely my biggest of the day. When we got this guy on the scales, he weighed in at 13 pounds 4 ounces. Now, what I've not really told many people is I'm not really a specimen angler. I just go out and catch fish. And this, believe it or not, is my all-time heaviest fish. The heaviest fish I had before this was 10 pound 8. But this guy, he topped the scales at 13.4, so he now holds that crown. But this fish in general was quite a lively fish, so I had to cover his head a couple of times before I could pick him up and get a nice photo. Then, after having a short time to recover in that net, he swam back off across the lake happy as Larry. So as it goes for plantations and on this match lake, it's a cracking little place if you're a novice carp fisherman like me, because it means that without really having to have a huge amount of knowledge, I was able to land 3 carp in just a short morning's fishing, which was absolutely fantastic. And this is definitely a venue that I'd love to come back to in the summer and see what I can do on this match lake itself, and maybe even try the specimen lake as well.
Well guys, we had a great morning down here at Plantations down at Clevdon, and we had some nice carp. I had one up to 13 pound, and unfortunately though it is time for us to pack up and go home. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Make sure you hit the subscribe button just here, check out my latest fishing video there, and of course my playlist up top.